can't go around and have a direct relationship with RChain, because we want to be kind of uh, the entity that is the go-to. So the idea that, but I guess the point I'm getting to is, in our discussions, I Jim pressed the record button. So, but I guess the thought was I'm a little hesitant on what I'd be able to contribute during the development hour with it being recorded.
Well, anybody can raise their hand. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and anybody can raise their hand and say, "Don't record me."
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that would be the way to approach it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. Have you heard anything back from Greg?
No, and he's got 100 balls in the air, so I'm sensitive to his time. So I'll just I'll be patient. When he has a chance, he'll get to it. But yeah, he's a busy guy.
Okay.
Actually, it sounds like that's something we want to send to the committees. Of course, committees don't exist,
right?
But if we set them up, they will exist. Committees can review this, and anybody who's doing a dApp would have a similar kind of interest, and this work that you're doing could be a great assistance for other dApp developers in creating a relationship with the co-op.
Yeah, this is a really interesting question, Jim. Like for a standard NDA, right? That would cover everybody who would hear anything in the co-op. Who would be responsible for signing that? Is it the president or is it a governance committee? Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think it's definitely governance, because if Greg makes any deals at all, is going to be strung up to the nearest tree.
Mm.
Well, and the legal aspect to development is just as important as the technical aspect. So it's good that we're kind of bringing that topic up for discussion. And the first issue is not these non-disclosure agreements. So we have we're looking actively. We want developers to come on board and start developing on the platform. And the one thing that's going to be in their mind is protection of their ideas. They want to, if they start working on a project, they want to have a sense of security that that idea is not going to be taken advantage of. And that's what the non-disclosure agreements and other types of agreements like that are there to help assage, to prevent those events from happening. So so maybe how would this work? So we have a governance meeting on Thursday. And as far as an element of timeliness, Greg's a busy guy. He has to. They're trying to get him to sign his confidentiality agreement, and I'm not sure what the status of that. So things are more important than others, and non-disclosure agreements may be a little further down the list. So in our Thursday governance meeting, if we were to bring up this idea of non-disclosure agreements, for dApps, if developers approach that discussion, and how is that, Jim? You said that would be something that the governance committee would be taking on, those administrative type of tasks. Yeah, I think you're on mute.
I think you gave a thumbs up, but
okay.
So like one wrinkle to that is, we're open source, and
RChain's open source, but the people who come to develop on
may not
RChain?
be.
Are they going to? I mean, they are their own separate entity.
Correct.
So they're they're working in a platform that's open source, but their own particular situation is different.
Right.
So, and I think that's important to uh, to appreciate that. Um, so yeah, I mean, so that I think that's certainly something that we need to um, be aware of. Um,
Yeah.
so
Anyway, you're right. We need a process. If listen, if there was a bona fide solutions group, a consulting wing, and they were working with the dApp developers, it'd be no problem for the solutions group to sign an NDA. In fact, most consulting engagements are governed by a master service agreement, an MSA, and inside the MSA
okay,
is a non-disclosure statements, although other documents can be provided. RChain doesn't do an MSA. RChain puts everything in the SOW, the statement of work, which I've honestly never really seen before. But because usually, like if I'm contracting with somebody, everything is governed by this master service agreement, especially if we're going out to
okay.
enterprises.
Well, so here's a few documents. So MSA. I'm going to write some of these down. So
Service
master
agreement.
service agreement, and then what was some of the others we mentioned? Service
Statement of
scope of
statement of
work,
work.
statement of
And
work.
that's usually project by project. So listen, it's kind of like if we're hired by a company and there's going to be a relationship with multiple projects, you have an MSA, and then each of the projects themselves would have a charter, and then an SOW would be written. And the SOWs vary, from situation and company to company, but basically it's a statement of the work that's going to be done, the costs for that work, and how payment is going to be done, milestones, etc.
Okay.
So then you have the SOW, then you would have an NDA, which it would also could include a
Non-circumvention.
thank you, circumvention
Yeah, all
agreement.
these, and then there's the mutual NDA, mutual non-disclosure agreement, which is a variation of the NDA.
Yes, I've always seen them as mutual. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
so we could put that in there.
So
And
I think go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, and there could be other things like indemnity and liabilities, but usually that's covered in the MSA.
Right. Okay. Well, we don't have, a rush of dApp developers coming on and seeking guidance to all this. So in that sense, it's, we have the luxury of time to kind of think about this and work through, I think, work through the mechanics of it through, right now it's a working group. So since my area of interest is more the technical side and dApp development and how the architecture progresses, I don't necessarily want to be on the governance committee, but here's something that's technical related, but it needs guidance from the governance committee. So what I'll do is I'll bring this topic of conversation up before the governance working group to start that conversation. So and present it in the scope that, hey, we're approaching mainnet. We're going to be soliciting dApp developers to come to the platform. RChain is open source, but these dApp developers, they're going to be LLCs and other sorts. They're not going to be open source. They're going to have a different set of incentives for them. So, we'll need to discuss, what's going to be the some of the legal documents that we want to be aware of and maybe have on hand when those discussions start to happen. Developer says, hey, I want to work on your open source, which is great, but what I make and develop, I don't want it to be, uh, pilfered. I don't want it to be stolen and used by other projects.
Yeah.
So,
Well, here's the thing.
Jim,
Yes.
can you go on mute? It sounds like a radio or something in the background. Or are you talking with a bad connection?
I think his wireless mic has moved out of range.
oh, boy,
He's
Gary.
trying to establish connection.
If I put my finger over the.
It sounds like a transistor AM radio, if anybody remembers those.
Yeah.
Or maybe aliens.
Where exactly did you travel to, Jim? He's on the far side of the moon.
Yeah, with the Chinese.
Jim's at a conference dealing with, in some fashion, I don't know if the whole conference is dedicated to this, but dealing with robots on the Keybase platform, and these robots are quite powerful. But what's interesting about Keybase is they seem to encourage people to create bot accounts and invite them to the different teams and channels, and so I'm really excited about it. We had a bot join our team this morning that the owner of which started communicating with us through our Rolang channel on Keybase. And what I've been talking about in the collab channels is what I'm starting to see is, rather than inviting people to your communities, what you will do is you'll invite their agent to your community, and then their agent would do for them, within whatever community they had received an invitation to, what they want to do with the information from that community, or what information they want to add to the community. But I don't know if this concept has any legs, but I see it as something that could be developed and we could just give to people, and that they would really want these things. We put one novelty app on it, and boom, they're in the program.
Yeah, that was an interesting discussion. I was reading your comments in Discord about how the roboting you were engaging with and what that led to. So yeah, that was pretty neat.
So I was having an issue with my Bluetooth. Hopefully it just needs to be charged. I just bought one for traveling, and I usually have problems.
Yeah.
But
Jim, you're a little quiet.
I did want
Actually, here, I've got my volume down, so maybe it's me.
No, my volume's almost all the way up. And
Yes, I know.
Try this one. Can you hear me better now?
it is better.
It is better. Okay, so that's good. This is working, which is awesome. You can still hear
What
me.
is that?
What's that? It's a speakers that I use when I'm doing a presentation with the laptop.
Hmm.
Bluetooth speakers. And I just realized it had a microphone in it. It showed.
Oh,
I have my Bluetooth. I plug it in, but it does Bluetooth as well. But it's like great. Better than my laptop speakers.
cool.
So what I was going to suggest, Steve, is that, the kind of governance we're trying to set up, is the board primarily delegates to the committees, delegate to the working groups. And the
Right.
working groups delegate to the members.
Right.
So it occurred to me that the right people to be working on this, the right committee is governance. The right working group is us, the dApp developer.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, and the right team to be determined. But I think you should put your name by it as one person. We don't have an activity until there are at least 2 names. If there's 2 names, then we have an activity. And, we should be able to get reports and the current status and all that.
Okay. So I guess, is this what we're doing here kind of like the formation or the elements or of a dApp working group, which would eventually roll into a dApp committee?
No. We would, I think it would remain a working group. I don't think it will be a committee. I think it'll report.
Working.
It'll report.
Okay.
Okay. It'll. Yeah, the call to action document.
Oh, okay. Right.
Okay, that's where we need to add under that developers the activities that are going to be done under that developers. One of these being contracts with developers and Steve Henley, and then we have to recruit somebody, at least one other person on that activity for it to be considered a collective activity. Has more than one person.
Okay. So I'm actually sharing my screen now, looking for the that document that we pulled up the other day, call to action. What did we call the name? Let's see.
If you go
There
to
we
the
go.
government channel,
I got it. So I'm pulling it up here. It's the RChain member call to action current state. And so I'm just going to go ahead and, okay, so we have here dApp developer. Okay, let me just kind of, okay, so there's in the section of dApp developers, and then, okay. So I guess we can kind of refer this as the dApp developer working group. And I'm just kind of talking out loud, and whether this is the approach that we want to go, let me know.
Everything under the working group section is a working group.
Oh, okay. There we go. That makes sense. These are all working group. Okay. So the so this topic, developer underscore, would be for how legal documents or okay, so legal documents, and then I'll just start kind of posting them here.
Non-competition is what you want, right?
Non-competition. Well,
I mean, that's going to be a tough order with the cooperative, but.
Well, it was non-circumvention.
Yeah, there's a there's so what I had sent to Ned was a non-disclosure agreement. So we didn't refer to it as a non-competition. We refer to it as a NDA, which is but this was a non-disclosure agreement with a non-circumvention.
All right.
Okay, so, and then in our discussion, we came up with a few others, which is a master service agreement.
And the MSA and the SOW, of course, those apply if there's going to be any kind of payment, involved. So maybe we could put that under financial or something.
Okay.
So maybe above MSA, put financial, and then you could indent those two or something.
Gotcha.
And the idea is we fill these things out here. And then when they get long, we put them in a separate document and we put a link to the document here.
Okay. Okay. And what I want to do is kind of add a little color to this regarding, so, we understand that here, I'll just kind of type it out and then we can change it. We understand that that RChain is an open source project. However, the dApp developers and their legal entities or may not be open source projects, and will require the following legal documents to be executed.
And we might want to have something, voting members of dApp developers sign some kind of agreement.
Say that first part. It sounded like you said voters something.
Voting members of dApp.
Okay, so say all that one more. Voting members what?
Of dApp developers.
Boy, Jim, you're...
Yeah, I'm not following the thread, Jim. Who
Am I
would
covering
be voting?
the phone?
The Bluetooth is a little broken.
Yeah.
I think you're too far.
You're too far away.
Bluetooth's like 30 feet, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, let me, I guess I have to come in. I should bring the laptop out here, but there's thunder, I've got you on a 65-inch TV screen, so I can read the screen from here. Say hi to my daughter.
Hello there.
Hello, daughter.
Hello, Dot. Yeah.
She was looking at the screen before. I wanted to make sure she knew the video camera was on. You need to warn your family, Jim.
I was looking for my book, and he's at my desk. I thought maybe I took it.
Yeah, and besides, you can see yourself on the TV.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So to finish your train of thought, you were saying
Yeah, voting.
voting members.
Yeah, voting voting members of the working group will sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Oh,
Is that reasonable?
All the voting members? It seems quite a lot.
Voting members of the working group. That means
How many would there be?
you, me, Gary, and Steve are in the working group right now
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
of the dApp developer.
right. And it has to be unanimous?
Consent, yeah. Sociocratic consent.
okay. So let me now. Okay, so we would be signing it as individuals, and then RChain would be signing it as RChain. So is that the
independent of what RChain does?
right? And that's what I needed. Okay.
Okay, independent of what RChain does, we will institute that among ourselves. Okay, and also, you know, we can seek. I think it's going to be problematical for the co-op as a whole. But if the secrets are only within our group, it doesn't. But the co-op isn't involved. In other words, if we keep it within the dApp developer group, then there's no issue. And then I think it should be individuals that sign it, not the co-op. So you might get Greg to sign it for a particular project.
Might this be a good use case for Keybase? And once we have developed these documents, we can both store the document on Keybase that will contain our signatures, and then we can tie our communications about that document that we've signed to some Keybase channels. That may be too much for non-Keybase users to grasp in one setting. But Jim, do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I think that is probably an issue that an activity that we have to consider is that's related to this is the secure platform we use. And I always go back to the 3 horizons. You know, it's what we're using today, you know, with Discord. What's next? And then what do we ultimately want? And the next thing that's available today is Keybase for a secure platform. And a platform we intend to integrate with RChain. There's a meeting I just left. They were talking about putting Robate on Keybase, and meetings I'm in next week at NYU. There's a session on you know, well, it's broad range. It's you know, it's you know, bots that you know, into artificial intelligence bots and everything. But there's Johnny Dabrowski and Raymond Powell, and a number of people are very much interested in robot on Keybase. So I think using Keybase for this group, I think is a wonderful idea. And it gives us monetary freedom. We can pay each other without any hassle.
Okay, so just to clarify, as individuals, we would sign with our Keybase keys, and then with these documents, I guess as a repository, can Keybase be used as a repository to store copies, photo images of the Keybase? Or of
Yes, it can. And I don't know that we will have to store images of the document. We can probably just attach signatures to the document. But in that respect, you know, my vision may require some exploration of Keybase, but you know, that's about where we are right now, is understanding those things. And yes, you could tie an image of the signed documents as well. And
It uses a planetary file system, so you can store anything you want. Okay, and as far as I know, you can sign anything. So we can work out the details later. But
okay.
If that's a good idea.
And one more thing, in private channels over there, you know, I mean, I'm thinking about how do we isolate and segregate communications or social objects that might be subject to the non-disclosure. And Keybase is the perfect place. We would have to create a private, a by invitation channel. And I don't think that would be too hard to set up. And your invitation is based on signing this document.
Yeah, well, that's a Java robot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I mean, we can. I mean, you know, it's not. It doesn't have to be automated. It can be basically done manually with what exists today. We just follow a protocol, a process for adding a new member to the team.
And by bringing them to any one of these teams, they'll all also immediately have access to all the public Rolang and robot goings on that we will already have established there.
Right.
Okay, so you know, this is good. We're having these. We're kind of laying the foundation for where we need to be in 2 or 3 months, from a legal aspect. So, how do we approach with our now? I had a brief introduction on Keybase 2 months ago. That's where I was able to keep a little bit up with Gary when he's talking about, you know, signing with Keybase and so forth. I just know that much, but I'm going to have to get a greater familiarity with it and what it can do, and then so I guess as a group we want to work towards incorporating the tool into our working group. So now, where's a good starting point? You know, I'm basically going to go to Keybase and just start kind of reading through it. But as far as a project plan of action, how do we go about? So we kind of outlaid what we need, where we're at, where we want to go, and what we want it to look like when we get there. So what are kind of the steps that we need to do in order for this to kind of move along?
Well, I'd say the first step would be for everyone to, you know, set up an identity on Keybase, and then with that identity that you intend to use with this idea we're coming up with now. And in my case, it's going to be my main identity. But you know, in the back of my mind, I realize now that having different identities on Keybase will become a real thing soon. But that's another can of worms we don't have to go down. Yes, just join Keybase, then join for now, so we don't have to do anything new. Is join the public Rolang channel, and we, you know, within Keybase, I guess the next step would be to set up our first private channel concerning this idea that we're about to implement, and then I'll proceed to invite people who are up to speed on Keybase to that channel. And I think, you know, everybody's discovery of Keybase ought to proceed naturally from that point on.
Yeah, I think what we should have is, you know, maybe you could put a protocol, a process for Keybase, maybe into the Colab or a separate document, and you know, to ultimately be, you know, hopefully ultimately to the wider RChain community, which deals broadly with RChain on Keybase. And as part of that, we have the dApp developer open group. Okay, we have the dApp developer members, voting members group. You know, I hate that name for it, but I mean, people that don't sign the non-disclosure, that don't have the information, can't make the decisions, right?
So this protocol process in the Colab, so this would be kind of like a dApp onboarding, as far as, okay, welcome to the RChain platform. We're going to make your experience of dApp development, you know, worthwhile. And this is kind of maybe create more of a roadmap for them on how to get from, you know, where they are to where they want to be. And the first is, you know, such as, you know, a review or discussion of confidentiality documents for their project.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting way back at the beginning, you know.
Oh, even before that. Okay, well, this is, I'm capturing all this stuff, confidentiality.
Good.
So go ahead.
I'm talking about, you know, getting people onto Keybase, into the RChain community, and then in the dApp developer, team, we would, you know, have sub teams for the dApps, and yes, in the dApp developer team, we would have this onboarding that you're talking about, which is good to, you know, good you have mentioned it.
Okay.
It's important.
Okay, so yes, starting more elementary, which is getting people on Keybase in the RChain community.
Right.
Okay, so and then as people come on, we kind of get a sense for what the pockets of topics or dApp development are. We form teams around these development areas.
Right. Now, you know, teams on Keybase are private. I mean, you can have them open so anybody can join. but it's not like open discussion on, a Discord server, which, well, they have different permissions there also, depending on roles. I don't know if Keybase has roles, do they?
Yes,
Yes, yeah.
they have roles, and to my understanding, teams can be either public or private.
Yeah.
So, hey guys, we're at the top of the hour. It was a great discussion today. I think we got a lot accomplished.
Yes. Okay.
And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, so hopefully if we come back next week, hopefully we'll be a little further along as everyone's setting up a Keybase account. So maybe as an action item, we'll do that first one there. Everyone set up a Keybase account or identity.
Yes.
Sounds good.
And
Yep.
All right.
feel free to contact me if I can help you in any way.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, if I've got any questions, we'll reach out. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so who's going
Have a
to
good day.
report in the dApp developer channel what happened today? You want to do that, Gary?
Here, since here, let me.
Or is Steve?
Yeah.
Here
Steve?
Yeah, I'll make a note in the log. You're talking about the cooperation work study.
Well, I think we should, the summary should go there. No, I'm talking about in our Discord channel, dApp developers.
Okay.
Okay. We can put, I mean, here we should point to the to the call to action, and we should point to the
That's Audi's. Audi's quicker than I am. I just look up and I didn't realize. Wait a minute, someone's already just did what I wanted to do. So hey,
when several people are editing the same document, sometimes you get a strange sense out. But after a while, you kind of start getting used to it.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Audi. I appreciate that. I was like, oh. There it is.
All right, guys, I got to run.
Oh, see you, Ned. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Yep. See ya.
bye-bye.
Okay. So, Audi dApp development.
Probably
Cool.
do another bullet point, just saying, what are we doing? A project action plan. Probably just making that on a list item.
Yeah. So, created dApp.
Oh, and I said, you can use your main identity, or you can set up a new identity for this project. I guess I should share that creating multiple identities on Keybase is very easy. I created my first one in just a few minutes and was using it in an experiment, which now I've reached a stumbling block on for a different reason. But the setting up the other account was no problem, and my new account, which I call GaryBot, has already joined several channels, and it's I've found, and what I wanted to report to this group is I've found an experimental Keybase bot channel on Keybase that I'm very excited about. And, once everybody gets up to speed on Keybase, then you'll hopefully you can join that channel too, because I'm getting all kinds of ideas and help there. And I'm also getting a better feeling for, where these guys are, and guys and gals with these with these bots on Keybase, and you know, I ran into a problem with my simple hello world, and I mean within minutes of my posting, you know, well, here's what I'm seeing on my screen, you know, I learned, you know, well, people are approaching these projects with a lot of different languages, and no one handy, you know, was the Node.js expert. So they kind of suggested a few things, which actually I need to go and investigate myself. But Keybase, like I said in the Discord channels, is looking better and better.
Cool. All right. Well, neat. Yeah, I'm gonna check it out. Okay. Well, I think we certainly covered a lot of ground today. So this is all encouraging, like Ned said. All right. So anything else? Anybody?
See you.
I had one non-related question that you guys might be able to help with.
Yeah.
Well, how would you explain the difference between functional object and procedural programming? I was just thinking back to the start of the conversation and tried looking it up, but couldn't really figure it out.
I think the
In terms of
simplest,
like programming languages.
the simplest thing I would think of as functional is mathematical, dealing with relationships of sets of numbers, not numbers of things, relations between things. Procedural is simply a sequence of operation that the computer follows. Object-oriented is the object model. Okay, in principle, pure objects. Everything is an object. Okay, the objects in Rolang are channels and messages. Okay.
Yeah.
And objects in pure object systems, objects only receive messages. Well, you know, that's compatible with Rolang also, in that a process and a message and a channel are sort of interchangeable. You can send a message to a message or
Yeah.
whatever. The third aspect of object-oriented systems is objects inherit behavior. Okay, so this means it's a hierarchy of classes of objects. Well, doesn't necessarily have to be a hierarchy. An object can inherit behavior from another object. In Java, they have interfaces, which aren't really very functional, but they define the language of objects. In Ruby, you have mixins, which are, you know, you can actually use the polymorphism, which means that the same name does different things, like adding a string, or adding a number, or adding something else can mean different things, but well, it should mean the same thing, really. But if objects have the same protocol, if they speak the same language, they're interchangeable, so that when you're writing a program, you don't have to know what the class is, so to speak, of the object. You just have to know if it supports the operations you're going to do on it. Okay, if you say you want to get a balance of some object, you don't necessarily care whether it's a bank account or whether it's a accounts receivable account or whether it's the Ethereum account or whatever. Okay, as long as it supports the balance, it should. As long as the object supports the balance, you'll get the answer, right? Questions?
Yeah.
Went into detail on objects because
I suppose my last question on that would just be, yeah. So realistically, it's not so much languages that are exclusively object functional or procedural, but more how you kind of use it and how you design your program. Would that be?
Can I suggest, my thinking on this? Functional. Jim, correct me if I'm wrong on this, especially if you think I'm confusing things more than I helping. But functional languages are built on the lambda calculus model. I don't. I think that's a given.
I think that is kind of a little bit confusing in that the lambda calculus is the basis of it's a computing model, okay, and it technically can be applied to any language, but there is the distinction between languages.
That may not really be where your question lies, though. You may just be talking about in the understanding of programming languages.
Yeah, it's kind of what I'm thinking, but I think I've kind of got a better handle on it. So we, for what we do, we deal more on the, I suppose to some extent, object side, but all the back end is functionally based. Would that be a relatively correct statement?
Somewhere back there, everything's based on Scala, which to me is a functional programming language. So if that's the question you're asking, then indeed everything is, in our case, everything somewhere goes back to a functional language. But Golang itself is not a functional language. It can be made to behave like a functional language in all respects, but it's not a functional programming language.
Right.
And I don't know if you'd be, I'm not sure. It's a concurrent programming language. I mean, you can have procedures within, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it gets really kind of intermingled really quickly.
Yeah.
But no, that's helpful information. I might just have a closer look at Scala and see if I can kind of spot the difference in some respect.
Functional programming languages are amazing, but I'll be honest, they're more amazing to computer theorists and language theorists, and this may be exactly what you're interested in. And I would suggest looking into Lisp, just plain plain old Lisp, and if you're interested in functional language, and you can whip up a IDE up for what's the language? It'll come to me, and I'll remind. I'll put it in the channel what I'm thinking of. But if you're just interested in functional languages, the team uses Scala, but to me, I'd say learn any Lisp first, and then go look at Scala. Jim, would you agree?
Yeah, I would just point out that the functional language is Haskell. Scala is really a hybrid of functional and object.
Okay.
Would using a functional would using a hybrid, a language that can be either functional or hybrid, answer your question? But to me, knowing which, whether I was actually doing functional language or not, would be easier to do in a purely functional compiler. And to me, that's go learn Common Lisp darn, I can't think of Racket.
And Racket.
RACKET. It's a very easy public, a Lisp compiler, and there's a whole body of stuff written about it, more as a theoretical language than as any sort of production language. But you could be up, running functional the functional language very quick. Racket.
You wouldn't think of Haskell in terms of pure functional language?
I don't know Haskell. I don't even know that. I would have assumed Haskell could have been considered a hybrid just like Scala. I mean, Haskell is a powerful language. Language.
Well, to some extent, Scala is a general improvement and extension of Java to support the relational model. So it's still Java underneath the covers to me. But I guess there's other viewpoints on Scala. It depends how, I guess, if you learn all the functional stuff first, it's purely functional. But if you learn all the object stuff first, then it's relational, pasted onto the object model.
Okay.
I love Scala. I think it's a great language.
But one thing in the favor of learning something like Haskell or Scala, those are both production languages, and you can get jobs using those languages. You can't get a job using Racket.
Right. Yeah. I think I'm just looking to get a better grasp on what kind of the different types of languages are once I heard it talked about this morning. Sweet. But no, that's helpful. Thank you for that.
Where did you hear it? Where was it talked about?
Jim asked Ned asked Jim this morning about it. It was another language, and then he was just like, "Oh, is that a functional or a
Oh.
procedural language.
Oh, how did I lose my camera? Oh, yeah, Rust.
Yeah, that's on Rust. Yeah.
Rust is, I guess Rust is considered to be imperative. I mean, it's a good question. um, uh,
I think it's one of those languages like
well, it's
Haskell.
multi-paradigm.
Multi-paradigm. Does that mean there's any kind of multiple language, multiple types, I suppose?
Yeah, sort of like I was considering Scala to be multi-paradigm in that it supports object and relational.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway, this is fun, but I gotta go. See you guys later.
See ya. I should probably head off
yeah,
to
I guess
actually.
it's about that time. See you, guy.
Yeah. Sweet. See ya.
Unless you have something else.
What was that, sorry?
I said, unless you have something else, we'll see you next time.
That was my one question.
Yeah. Later. Thanks, guy. Bye-bye.